Hello, hello. Mic testing. One, two, three. Hello, 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 hello,
சப்ல வண்டிங்களா?
hello. Mic test.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly? Hi, hello, can you all hear me clearly? Hello, can you all hear me clearly? Is there anyone on the other side who can give me an answer? If can you all hear me clearly? And can you confirm if you can see my slides? Okay, I'll start with the presentation for today. So my name is Gusharan Kaur. I'm a dietitian. I'm based in Malaysia, but I work for a company in Singapore. So today I'm here to represent myself as an independent consultant dietitian. All right. So the title I've been given is Integrating Traditional Dietary Wisdom with Evidence-Based Dietetics for Sustainable Health. I think it's a very interesting title. So let's look at the table of content. So the outline for today is mainly common traditional dietary wisdom. I've been sharing a few from a different cultures and its science. What are some tips to enhance dietary wisdom with modern science? Looking at chrononutrition and mindful eating and tying that with the traditional dietary wisdoms. And lastly, tips for mindful eating. All right. So I'll start the first common traditional dietary wisdom. We'll start with the Indian dietary wisdom. So the Indian dietary wisdom is very deeply rooted in Ayurveda. So it emphasizes a lot about being mindful, incorporating seasonal food and whole foods, and mainly it's to balance not only the body but for the mind as well. So some of the common dietary practices in the Indian culture is eating with hands. So eating with hands, it's something that is very common, but the science behind it is basically it engages touch, temperature, and texture before the first bite reaches your mouth. All right. So indirectly, you know what the texture is, you know what the temperature of the food is. All right. So eating with hand also encourages smaller bites And when it does that, it also slows down the pace of eating. All right. And both of these indirectly then prevents overeating. Okay. When you slow down your pace, you eat more mindfully, you have smaller bites. Okay. The next wisdom is eating local produce. So, eating local produce basically means eat seasonal foods, things that are within the local climate and season. All right. So, basically, then the accessibility is better. You also get produce which is more when it's in season, it's always accessible all the time. Okay. Looking at the culinary techniques perspective, it incorporates a lot of fermentation related foods. For example, dosa, idli, and curds are traditional Indian foods which have got an element of fermentation. All right, so it not only helps to provide natural probiotics, okay,
Zonda.
but then these probiotics, what we know is it then in turn supports gut health and immune system. We hear a lot about probiotics these days. So looking back at our own culture, all right, so the Indian culture talks about incorporating natural probiotics through fermentation as part of their traditional food. Besides that, we are also looking at spices integration. So, Indian food incorporates a wide variety of spices, and many of them have got a wide variety of health benefits. All right. So, common spices that we use are turmeric, cumin, and ginger. So, turmeric and cumin are very well known antioxidants, and cumin and ginger also is very helpful to aid in digestion. Okay. So that is the other part about spice integration. It also has got some beneficial health properties. Now, moving on to the other traditional wisdom is the fact that banana leaves are used when eating meals. Okay, so it's very commonly done. Even here in Malaysia and Singapore, when you go to traditional Indian restaurants, they do still serve food on banana leaves. When you look at the science behind it from a health perspective, when the hot food touches the banana leaf, it actually releases polyphenols, okay, known as EGCG, which has got a very long name there, epigalactocatechin gallate. All right, and this has got antioxidant properties. Okay, besides that, looking at from a sustainability point of view, banana leaves are very biodegradable. Okay, it doesn't produce any, basically, it doesn't add to the landfill. Okay, when it doesn't add to the landfill, it has got less impact on the environment, more sustainable for the planet. Okay, we want to try and make sure as much as possible things are biodegradable and doesn't harm the planet. All right. From a flavor perspective, when hot curries touches the waxy surface of the leaf, it actually releases an aroma, all right, which enhances the overall eating experience. This is a very unique part of it, where when hot items touch the banana leaf, it actually releases a very nice, pleasant aroma, which enhances the overall experience. The other part is turmeric milk before bed. So this is something we have heard. It's a very age-old tradition that we have heard mothers and grandmothers tell us to drink turmeric milk before bed, right? So it's known as a warm, comforting drink to soothe the body before sleeping. Okay, reason being, because of the spice in it, that's why it's warm. Okay, which is turmeric. So turmeric, now looking at the health benefit, it's been very well studied that the component in turmeric, which is curcumin, has got anti-inflammatory properties, and it's also been discovered that the addition of black pepper to the turmeric actually enhances the bioavailability of it. Okay, it is due to the presence of the compound called piperin in it that enhances the bioavailability of curcumin. So, in order for curcumin to be well absorbed in the body and for you to get the health benefits, the component of piperin from black pepper is essential. Why is it known to be very helpful
Hello.
for sleeping? This is due to the amino acid known as tryptophan in milk, which is involved in producing hormones which helps with regulating our mood and sleep cycles, which is known as serotonin and melatonin. So we know that these are very, very helpful in regulating sleep cycles. So that's why it's known as the drink that you have before bed, all right, due to the tryptophan. Now, moving on to the Mediterranean dietary wisdom. Um, the Mediterranean dietary wisdom talks a lot about communal dining, meaning that they emphasize eating meals together as a family with friends. It's also recommended to then eat slowly, and eating is actually treated as a social occasion. So, in a way, it's very good because when you treat having a meal together as a social occasion and you should eat slowly, it actually supports emotional well being as well. Okay, because when you meet with each other, you sit together, there is deeper connection and people tend to eat slowly as well. They also encourage seasonal eating, just like the Indian dietary wisdom earlier. So whenever we incorporate, whenever the culture incorporates seasonal eating, it definitely then prioritizes fresh seasonal ingredients, and the nutrient availability is also at its maximum, and the accessibility is much better. And usually, when it's seasonal, it's much cheaper as well. Okay. In terms of the composition of a Mediterranean diet, it also has got a very balanced dietary component to it. It has got high amounts of vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, and it emphasizes on more fish intake, less red meat and processed meat. Okay, so it's a very wholesome dietary perspective that the Mediterranean diet had. In fact, the Mediterranean diet has been regarded as one of the world's best dietary patterns. It has been very well studied, and it has been shown to lower the risk of heart disease, cancer, dementia, diabetes, with improved mental health and longevity. All right. So, this is also another part about the Mediterranean dietary wisdom. Now, moving on to the Japanese dietary wisdom. So, according to the Japanese dietary wisdom, they emphasize a lot on having one soup and three sides. All right, it's a very interesting concept. So, the rice is always the main. So, as you can see, there is one soup in the picture here with three sides. Okay, so meals like this will then encourage variety in the food that we consume, because you will have to think about what are the three dishes to incorporate in your meal. And it also then kind of, in a way, exercise portion control. If you look, they have used those bowls there. Okay, so in that way, you will exercise some form of portion control, and it prevents overeating one particular food group. Because if it has to be three sides, then three sides would ideally be different, like what you see in the picture: one protein, one vegetable, and one a combination of a protein and a vegetable. Okay, the next thing is that the Japanese dietary wisdom also incorporates fermented foods as well, just like the Indian dietary wisdom we saw earlier. Theirs is more like natto, miso, and Japanese pickles. And we know whenever we talk about fermented foods, these foods really help with gut health and immune support. So we can see here that there's been a lot of talk about gut health. We can look back at the traditional cultures, dietary cultures of the different in different parts of the world, to see how actually these things have already been in place many years ago. All right. The other interesting part about the Japanese dietary wisdom is the fact that they discovered the umami of fifth taste as a flavor enhancer. So the interesting thing about this is that the umami fifth taste relies on natural food items rather than excess salt to flavor it. So it mainly comes from using seaweed, fermented soy products, and mushrooms to come up umami or the fifth taste. All right. Now, it's a very interesting, this umami fifth sense of taste is a very interesting component, because, so like back here in Malaysia, we have done some studies in old age homes where as people grow older, their sense of taste becomes less sensitive. So sometimes, although the food is well seasoned, but instead of adding more salt, the addition of umami, using umami components, have actually helped them improve. All right. So it's very helpful for people with reduced sense of taste sometimes. Moving on to the Chinese dietary wisdom. So they make particularly of yin and yang to maintain health. So yin is known as the cooling or passive foods, and yang form the foundation of the. Okay. They also talk about seasonality, the Chinese dietary wisdom. So eating cooling yin foods in the summer, so that basically it's hot outside, you cool your body inside, and the warming yang foods, whereby it's cold outside, you try to warm yourself up. Okay, so they also talk about seasonality. All right. So cooking methods, because yin is cooling, so boiling and steaming are considered cooling methods. Frying and roasting are known as yang, which is more, has got more warming properties. Okay, so if we looked at several different dietary wisdom in different cultures, okay, so if you look at it, when we bring it all together, all the cultures' wisdom share common themes. Okay, themes are eating slowly, eating mindfully, eating with hand. Right, we saw earlier. So all this actually slows down the pace that we eat. All right, it encourages us to listen to our body's hunger and satiety cues. All right, and when you slow down the way you eat, when you eat with people, indirectly, all these actually is a helpful strategy in weight management. So a lot of the times among the patients I see for weight management, even now, mindful eating has been one of the things I very commonly say, because sometimes patients need to differentiate whether they are eating due to physical hunger, which is actual sense of hunger in the body, or it's more of emotional eating. So being able to distinguish that at that point of time, whether you're eating because you're hungry or because you're emotional, is very important. So slowing down really helps in that aspect. All right. The second thing is we saw a lot of the cultures talked about seasonal food, eat food that are in season, eat local produce. It's very, very helpful for the planet. Okay. So very much more sustainable, less, we contribute less to pollution and greenhouse effect basically. Okay. Incorporation of all food groups. A lot of the cultures we saw just now, most of them have got advocate for balanced diets. If you look at all the food, the cultures I shared about earlier, most of the diets have got all the food groups: grains, proteins, vegetables, fruits. So most of it are all fresh ingredients. We don't see ultra processed foods being included there. Okay, which is what we know want to encourage our patients as well. Now, moving on to the next part. So, we have looked at the traditional dietary wisdoms, but there's also modern science that's emerging that we can actually use to merge with the traditional dietary wisdoms and make, in order to promote better health among populations. All right, because of course, the traditional dietary wisdoms are there. We have seen the science of it, it's great. But again, physical activity level among people have reduced. Everything is a desk job, we move lesser, right? So, things that you can look at is meal sequencing. So we have looked at how most of the cultures advocate for different food groups. Meal sequencing, meaning that you start eating your meals, you start your meals by eating fiber first. So in this case, you can start, meaning that you start eating vegetables first, and then you proceed with having protein and carbohydrates after that. Okay, so there has been a research in Japan, by doing meal sequencing. There's a whole paper on it. It has been shown to help with postprandial glucose elevation. Postprandial glucose elevation is the glucose level after we eat. So, in people who have got compromised blood glucose level, once they eat, glucose levels can go up. All right. In some cases, they can go up very severely, those who are diabetic, especially. So, by doing this meal sequencing, it actually promotes the secretion of glucagon like peptide GLP-1, which is a very common word we hear these days from the gut. And this kind of helps to manage the secretions of insulin and glucagon. It delays the gastric emptying rate because when you start with fiber, fiber always keeps you full, okay, thereby improving the postprandial glucose excursions. So when it keeps you full, chances of you eating more carbohydrates are lesser later on because you've started with something that already fills your stomach compared to starting with carbohydrate first. All right, so that's the science behind it. So within the traditional dietary wisdoms, we can incorporate a modern science that we have discovered. The other thing that can help with glucose levels are post is what is we call a post meal walk. So a lot of the times, even among my clients, I've seen when you take that short 10-minute walk after a meal, especially those people who are diagnosed with diabetes, it's shown that it really helps to lower their postprandial glucose spikes. Okay, so why it helps and how it helps? Because when you start walking, glucose is used as a fuel for muscles. When you walk, your muscles need to work. So the glucose is being used as fuel and hence it help lowers the postprandial glucose spike. So this is how we can merge modern science, evidence-based dietetics with traditional dietary wisdom. So we have looked at some science earlier. This is how we, one aspect of merging it. Let's look at now chrononutrition and mindful eating. So, what is chrononutrition? So, basically, it's the science of how circadian rhythms, basically the body's 24-hour cycles, what time you wake up, what time you sleep, that's the circadian rhythm, nutrition and health interact. Okay, so it's very much related. Mindful eating, on the other hand, is basically using all your senses to experience and enjoy the food that you eat. So, which is why just now, earlier also, we saw in the other cultures, they've mentioned eating slowly, eating with your hand because you touch and you know what the texture of the food is, what the temperature of the food is. It's a component of mindful eating, basically. All right. Why do we talk so much about mindful eating? The goal is to tune in with your body's signals of hunger and satiety. So you have to know whether you're really hungry or it's just an emotional reaction to something else. Okay. So when we are more mindful about what we're eating and why we're eating, you become more aware about your environment, your thoughts, and your emotions affecting your eating patterns. Some patients can actually articulate to the dietitian that actually I know it's emotional eating. When I get emotional, when I get stressed, I look for sweet food, for example. So being able to know that helps the intervention also after that. So you'll know how to manage this kind of patients. Okay. So mindful eating is important. Let's look at some of the Indian wisdoms of chrononutrition. We talked about the circadian rhythms just now. So in Ayurveda, it's said that it's advised to eat the heaviest meal at lunch, which is between 12 to 2 p.m. Why? Because the digestive fire is strongest at that hour. And for dinner, it's advisable to eat 2 to 3 hours before bedtime and avoid late night meals, which can create toxins in the body. So This is similar to what we encourage our patients as well. So we always tell patients eat at least 3 hours before bedtime so that your food has got time to digest. All right, the gastrointestinal activity has settled down. There's lower chances of acid reflux by the time you go to bed. So this is pretty similar. Heaviest meal at lunch, yes, also because if you look at this day and age, we are the most active at that hour, right? So even if you have the heaviest meal, you have the rest of the day and time to digest all that food. Okay, so somewhere there's some similarity between what has been said many years ago and the science of it now. The Japanese wisdom about mindful eating, they have this concept called hara hachibu. Hara hachibu meaning eating only half full or 80% full. Okay. It originates from Okinawa. Most of you would have probably heard about the Okinawan diet. So they are a renowned blue zone, which has been known for longevity in that area. All right. So they always suggest stop when you're 80% full rather than when you're 100% full. All right. The rationale is also partly, if you look at science, for the stomach to send signals to the brain to tell it that it's full, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. So if you're 80% full, by the time you are actually, the signals travel, you will actually be already full. Whereas if you're 100% full, 15 minutes later, you're going to feel stuffed, which is why they always advise in the Japanese wisdom, stop when you're 80% full. So if you see this picture, it's a very good illustration. So this guy has eaten up to 80%. His friend is offering him more. He stops at this point. Okay, eating when you're stop when you're 80% full. The traditional Chinese medicine wisdom is using chopsticks to eat. Their rationale is that when you use chopsticks, it slows down the eating pace and encourages smaller bites through chewing. So chopsticks, as you can see, there's only certain amount of food you can take. You can't really take that much. So that actually slows down the pace that you eat as well. It gives you more time to chew. Okay. So that in a way slows a person down and it prevents overeating. Okay. So those are the three wisdoms about mindful eating and chrononutrition. Let's look at some tips for mindful eating, right? So it's easier if you want to give tips to your patients or for yourself. The first thing is to always plan and prep meals in advance, okay? Because sometimes when you are actually hungry at that point of time and there's nothing healthy available, that's where the chance to grab something unhealthy becomes even easier, okay? The decision making. So when you prepare meals ahead of time, you keep stock of healthy snacks, fruits, nuts, yogurt, available whenever you need to snack. These are available. Decision making is easier as well. Okay, so number one is plan and prep meals in advance. Number two is to set a dedicated dining spot and create a distraction free zone. So it's always best to have a specific place where you eat. Sometimes in this day and age, it's so common for us to hear people sitting at their desk in front of their laptop or sitting in front of the TV. So then eating just becomes something that you have to just eat and then get on with your work. That creates the opposite of mindful eating. All right. So when you sit without any device and eat, it makes your meals more intentional. You're actually seeing what you're eating, how much you're eating, not just looking at the screen and gulping down. Okay. So you focus more on the texture, taste, and aroma. And whenever you eat in groups, it also helps you stay present when you're eating because there are chances that you will not be looking at any device. You'll be socially talking, interacting. So you're more present during the eating part of it. Okay. The next tip would be to schedule meal times. All right. So sometimes I've heard clients tell me that they are so busy working to the point that they forget to eat at the specific times, and they eat later. And then by that time, they are very hungry, and that leads to overeating. So instead of it leading to overeating, it's best to set timings on your phone. If you think you get really busy and you will not remember to eat, setting timers is a great way to remind yourself to eat before the excessive hunger comes in. So you can prevent overeating after that. Okay, this is something very common that I've heard from people who are very busy working. So even on your busiest days, the suggestion is to set a timer. At least you have a 10-15 minute where you dedicate to eating something and then you can continue with your work. It's better than overeating later on. All right. The next is basically to listen to your body. So again, I think sometimes we all have this tendency that whatever that is on the plate, the amount that we have taken, we have to finish our food. Okay, we can't waste any food, but it's okay. So listening to your body means even if there's a little bit extra rice left on your plate, you are full, it's fine. You can either keep it and have it for the next meal, that's available. So you don't really waste food in that sense. So if you're outside in a restaurant, there's balance. You can always get the restaurant people to pack the food for you, and then you can either give it to another family member who's at home or have it the next day if it's still okay. All right. So listening to your body and avoiding the fact that you must finish everything on your plate is good. Again, it talks about stopping at 80% full because it takes time for the brain to receive the signals from the stomach. Okay, so recognizing these cues in the body helps mindful eating, helps you achieve mindful eating better. Okay, so in summary, we have looked at the different traditional dietary wisdoms. We have looked at tips for mindful eating. We have looked at the science behind it. If you look at it, a lot of it encourages seasonal produce. This is actually very eco-friendly, very environmentally friendly, okay, less impact, more accessible for people, and usually seasonal foods are always cheaper. Okay, also if you look at the traditional dietary wisdoms, it has always encouraged fresh food items, okay, just like what our forefathers did. Having more fresh fruit, according to what the traditional dietary wisdoms have encouraged, actually reduces the intake of ultra processed food, which is on the rise in a lot of places in the world. And we know high quantities of ultra processed food is associated with risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, which are the leading causes of death in many places, right? And mindful eating, which has been incorporated in a lot of the cultures we saw just now, actually helps to build a healthy relationship with food. And it's a very important component in weight management because it teaches people to recognize and listen to their body, and it prevents overeating. Okay. Also, the use of natural herbs and spices, especially in the Indian dietary wisdom, some herbs, some form of spices in the traditional Chinese dietary wisdom, the fermented foods, all these actually help to reduce the need of excessive use of salt and bottled sauces that sometimes is very commonly used these days to flavor food, because herbs and spices on their own have got a lot of natural flavoring. All right. So that's the summary of the session for today. This is my reference list. I thank you very much for your time, taking your time to listen. Thank you. If there's anyone who has any questions, I can take a few questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
So many
Sir, can we start the
Yes, madam, I'm here now.
Developing sustainable, science-driven solutions using microbial technologies, fermentation science, and nutrition, natural bioformulations to address global changes in agriculture and environmental sustainability. Currently, serving in a leading agribiological research and development leadership role. Dr. Mathur has been instrumental in advancing precision agriculture technology, microbial biofertilizer, and biocontrol solutions aimed at improving crop productivity while reducing reliance on synthetic agrochemicals. His research expertise spans biochemistry, fermentation technology, formulation science, and microbiology, making him a key contributor to modern sustainable agricultural innovation. Dr. Mathur's scientific contributions are also reflected in several pioneering patients, including innovations in microbial degradation of solid waste, improved molasses fermentation for enhanced ethanol recovery, and fungal-based solutions to improve sucrose recovery in sugar production. These innovations demonstrate his commitment to translating laboratory research into real-world industrial applications. His excellence has been recognized globally with numerous prestigious awards. Among them, he has been listed among the world's top 2% scientists 2022 to 2025 by Stanford University and the AD Scientific Index. He has also received accolades such as Global Research Excellence Award, Golden Global Health and Excellence Award, Gem of Asian International Excellence Award, and the World Agricultural Innovation Excellence Award for his outstanding contributions to biotechnology and sustainable agriculture. Beyond research, Dr. Mathur is also widely respected as a scientific consultant across environmental, food, nutraceuticals, and pharmaceutical sectors, contributing his expertise to interdisciplinary innovations and industrial advancement. Through his pioneering work in microbial science, nanotechnology, and sustainable bioagriculture, Dr. Mathur continues to inspire scientists, researchers, and young scholars across the world. His dedication to developing environmentally responsible technologies has significantly contributed to the global movement towards a greener and more sustainable bioeconomy. It is indeed a great honor for us to have such a distinguished scientist and innovator among us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our chief guest, Dr. Abhishek Mathur.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for the brief introduction, and also thanking you for inviting me to deliver on such a nice forum. So I hope that my voice is audible and my presentation is visible. So is my presentation visible and my voice audible to you? Yeah. So talking about the biological fermentations for natural antimicrobials and food preservation, right? So coming to the topic, so here I will be speaking on the different processes of antimicrobial productions for the food preservation, and basically the main emphasis is the biological fermentation. So through biological fermentation, you can develop a lot many molecules, natural molecules, which can be utilized for the food preservation. So you know that there many companies are basically using that traditional chemicals for food preservation, and anyhow their toxic residues are entering within our body system, and they are destroying our body organs and lead to malfunctions of the body organs as well, and leads to serious clinical conditions in the nearby future. So the my talk will be concise on the preparation of natural antimicrobials, the basic alternative sources of food preservatives, and they are the basic alternatives for the chemicals as well, which are being used in the food preservation. So coming towards my topic, biological fermentation for natural antimicrobials and food preservation. So here this is Dr. Abhishek Mathur, working as a senior scientist and general manager R&D and techno commercials, Omni Agrochemicals Private Limited, Panchkula. So we are basically working in the agrochemical sectors, agrobiological sectors, as well as the nutraceutical part as well, for the food preservation, for the food ingredient development, and different kinds of remedies to deteriorate the different kinds of pathogens entering in the food spoilage. So, right. So, you know, like when we are talking about the spoilage, so culprits are bacteria, fungi, molds coming from the environment, coming from the contaminated food source, coming from the different kinds of living bodies as well, and any kind of spoiled food that is associated with with that premises, right? So through that location, those basically contaminants are coming, and these contaminants are basically in the form of bacteria, fungi, and molds, right? So these all are microscopic entities, and they are basically of different sizes and spores, so they can be characterized differentially. So just by looking at the surface, if you are not having a knowledge of understanding that it is a mold infection or it is a bacterial infection, so you will not be able to understand. Although the molds and the fungi infection will be more prevalent, and you can be able to see with the naked eyes, because these are much bigger in size in comparison to bacteria. So the bacterial infection you cannot understand merely by the naked eyes, but the fungi and the mold infection you can easily see it and visualize from your eyes basically. So anyways, the contamination when happens, so what happens, it basically these organisms, they basically eat that material, they consume that material and gains energy, right? And multiplies in a rapidly faster rate, right? So because this is a food item, this is containing the sugar, this is containing the carbohydrate residues, this is containing the proteins, fat, etc., etc., and those microorganisms are having the ability to feed on those molecules, right? And those molecules are if available in the single food item, so basically that grows easily, right? So because their food is available, right? So when it starts growing, so it basically starts consuming that carbohydrate, protein, lipid, fat, or any kind of nutrient within that food item, right? And when it starts growing, right, so it multiplies in particular time period, right? So like bacteria grows in n number, 2 raised to power n, right, in 24 hours. First 18 to 24 hours, the bacteria multiplies very effectively, right? And the fungi basically takes some time, and it requires about 48 hours time period to make a spore and to develop multiple spores in the food material, right? So what happens during the food spoilage, during the microbial spoilage, the microbial attack happens, then the food starts degrading because those microbes starts producing their enzymes, their metabolites, and those basically feeds on the food material, those components of the food material, right? And then what happens, a changes appear as a regular result of the food spoilage. So when food spoilage happens, that you can see that some foul smell is coming, or some texture is getting changed, or some kind of like different color is getting produced, right? So that happens in the food material when it is degraded by the microbial attack. And then the enzymatic reaction happens, and then come slowly, if you do not throw it, okay, and you make it left for some period of time, so what happens, that completely food item gets decomposed, and that organism has completely consumed that material, and the foul smell is coming, and then that your material is completely degraded. Sometimes in some of the food material, some leachate is also coming out, because the spoilage or degradation when happens, or those microorganisms which when working on it, so that causes a release of some liquid, or release of liquid from the food item. Liquid is that material only, that moisture which is basically used for the making the food item, right? So that is also released, and that is also containing different kinds of spores. Now that is also a source of infection, suppose. Okay, so when any kind of liquid is also getting generated when it is degraded by the microbial attack, so that liquid, if it falls on the fresh food material, then again that infection gets started in the new fresh material, right? So coming towards the food ingredients as natural preservatives in almost food items. So there are basically different kinds of food ingredients that are used, that are developed as natural preservatives in almost food items. And these are basically pickles, meat items, and the ice creams, the paneer, cheese and paneer, basically the juices, beverages. So all these items basically are now containing different kinds of preservatives. So that we have to understand that the particular manufacturer has used the clean label solutions. Clean label means the zero toxicity, right? Zero toxicity, or like vegan sources are without chemicals, right? So they have used the clean label solutions or vegan solutions, or they have used the chemicals in their food item for the preservation. So no food item available in the market is without preservatives, right? So any food item, if it is getting preserved and is transported, it is stored for longer time, and is having a shelf life of 1 year or 2 years, that means definitely it is having a preservative. So that has to be understand that what kind of preservatives these people are using, and do you have any solution of it. So like that is the main thing. So why these preservatives are being used, right? So these preservatives are being used because to enhance the shelf life of the product. So that shelf life is basically directly connected to the microbial attack only. So if you are enhancing the shelf life, it means you are enhancing the preservative ability of the food item. That means there will not be any kind of microbial attack in that particular time period, right? And that particular food item will be stored for a longer time, for that particular time which is mentioned on the label claim, right? So that has to be taken care of. And also you have to ensure that that whenever you are adding the preservative, that preservative should not cause any taste change, odor change in the product, in the food material, right? If it is changing the texture, if it is changing the color or flavor or odor of the food material, the concerned food material, then no person will consume it, right? That no one will consume it. So that you have to understand that what kind of preservative has to be used and in what proportion of dosages, right? That all studies are being done to understand the shelf life, the dosages pattern of that particular preservative, and how you are storing for that particular time, what will be the shelf life of that particular product, right? So why all this mess? Why all this mess? Because of infection of listeria. So like this is a very pathogenic microorganism that is normally found in the food material and cause pathogenicity there. Listeria monocytogenes is the species of pathogenic bacteria that causes the infection listeriosis, right? Have you heard about Listerine? So that Listerine mouthwash, that is for goggles, for mouth cleaning, that is because to kill that Listeria monocytogenes. So normally what happens in your bad mouth, in your like foul mouth, when you are not brush your teeth, or you have not wash your mouth, at that time this Listeria may be present in your mouth, as well as in many of the meat and different poultry items also. This bacteria gets entrapped in that food item, and then it causes different pathogenicities, right? So it can grow and reproduce inside the host cell, and is one of the most virulent foodborne pathogen, with 20 to 30% of foodborne listeriosis infection. So it is a major threat for the food infections, food spoilage, and because of this bacteria only, so maximum deaths also happen. So that is a main thing about listeria. And it is a gram-positive bacterium, but is having a ability to grow at temperatures about as low as 0 degrees. So it can be when you are storing in the food in your fridges, in the cool storage areas. So never think that there will not be any kind of bacteria, or there will not be any kind of microbial infection. So at that time also, that listeria can also contaminate your food material. So that is a threat, okay, and that you have to take care of. So that temperature also allows the multiplication at typical refrigeration temperature, greatly increasing its ability to evade and control in an environment that is a very impossible task, that you have to understand. So what is the problem statement? Now, to get rid of this listeria, what people are doing? People are using niacin, right? So this niacin is basically an antimicrobial agent, and is basically used in different varieties of cheese, paneer, okay, and this is a very toxic item as well, right? So mozzarella, and different kinds of cheddar, paneer, and different kinds of milk items. This niacin is being used. So to get rid of, or to find the replacement of niacin, we have to identify the natural antimicrobials and natural preservatives that should be used in your food items. Okay, and this should be a practice, and this can eradicate such kind of activities of niacin, as well as also alters the infection of pathogenicity of listeria monocytogenes like organisms. So that you have to take care of. So what is niacin? So let's understand about niacin. It's a water-soluble vitamin that participates in a variety of biochemical reactions in the body. Also, it is supportive for some biochemical processes, but it is naturally synthesized from amino acid tryptophan. So excessive ingestion of niacin might cause burning, tingling, itching, and redness of the face, arms, and chest, as well as headache. Severe headaches may start if you are consuming it for beyond some level. So starting with small doses of niacin and taking 325 gram of milligram of aspirin will help in reducing the flushing reaction. So like that kind of flushing reaction happens because of niacin, and that for that some kind of painkillers you basically used as aspirin. While when you're consuming alcohols, right, at that time that particular behavior gets accelerated because of alcohol consumption, and that should not be done while taking the niacin. So, and you never know, you are not taking the niacin externally, you are taking the niacin from some food items. That niacin is basically used in the food item for the preservation, right? So that you are not knowing that, yeah, when you are having a paneer or when you're having a cheese, at that time the niacin is getting inside in your body. So that you have to take care of. So you from the next time, if you are going towards purchasing of paneer, so that you have to be very careful that how you can get rid of it, right? So when this particular niacin doses increases, various serious threats occurs in the body, and that is causes different kinds of gouts, ulcers, and digestive tract losing, loss of vision, high blood sugar, and irregular heartbeat, and other serious problems. So it is also found that in high doses of niacin may increase the risk of strokes, heart strokes, right? So that is a problem statement, right? Now, how to replace niacin? So fermentation based vegan solutions are the answers for it, are the solutions for it, right? So fermentation based vegan solutions, how you can prepare it? So like we at Omni are basically producing from the glucose itself. So we are producing the glucose from different raw material, right? And then we are fermenting the glucose to different to make the different preservatives. Normally, what happens whenever you are consuming these kind of items, okay, and so that basically anyhow you are making a paneer or making a substitute or making a kind of dish out of it. Okay, so what happens? Don't go for it. You just use this milk or yogurt and all those things for making the fermentation based approach to develop the antioxidant compounds and antifungal compounds. You have a solution just right there. You have not seen it actually, right? So basically what you are consuming, that you are consuming for making different kinds of items, food items, and that you are consuming, and for that food items basically the people are using different preservatives in it, chemical preservatives in it. So why not you basically take this material to act as a substrate for making these beneficial natural preservatives, which may be in the form of antioxidant compounds and antifungal compounds. So through fermentation, we can produce the gluconic acids and their salts as gluconates, lactic acids and their salts as lactates. And this can be achieved by the fungal strains. They are beneficial fungal strains as well, beneficial bacterial strains as well. Also, there are different preservatives like propionates, acetates, sorbates, etc., etc. So citrates, right? So these all can be developed from single glucose molecule, right? If you're getting a glucose, if you can convert glucose from different raw materials, right? Either from a starch substrate or rice husk, wheat straw, and you're converting into glucose, then that glucose can be fermented to make a natural preservative like gluconates, lactates, propionates, acetate, sorbates, etc., etc. And like every time the fungal and bacterial strains are not pathogenic, right? There are some grass category of microbes, right? There are some grass category of microbes that can be that can be used, right? So grass microbes are what? Grass microbes generally regarded as safe. Okay, so there is a list of the microbes which are beneficial for fermentation, which are beneficial for the food, which are beneficial for making the food preservatives, etc., etc., antibiotics, etc. And those are basically known as grass microbes, right? So there is a list, right? And those microbes can be used. That can be probiotic, that can be any kind of a strain which is a grass microbe and is included in that list, and that strain can be used for making that preservative, right? So now how you will proceed. So production of glucose as a raw material for production of natural antimicrobials or preservatives. So look, what basically is the process that can be done? Wheat grains pulverized to powder, right? It is forming a flour. Then the flour is containing the starch as well as proteins, because each of the grain, right? If you are using a wheat, if you are using a maize, if you are using a rice, that is basically having a different composition of starch and proteins, right, and fibers as well. So when you're using a wheat or a rice or a maize, it is forming a flour, and then that flour is having both the components, starch and protein, as well as fibers as well, in the very small amount fibers, right? And then with the specific enzymes, like enzymes works on specific substrates, right? For digesting of the starch, there are some specific enzymes. For digesting of the protein, there are some specific enzymes. So what enzymes you will use? You will use the amylase enzymes to convert the starch into glucose. So finally, the product you will get as a wheat-based glucose syrup, or corn-based glucose syrup, or rice-based glucose syrup. So this is a one molecule which you have produced through fermentation, and that basically further used for making a natural preservative. So you see, then you have taken the material in a seed fermenter. You have used some good bacteria into it, probiotics for lactobacillus. And in the second category, you are using this glucose in a seed fermenter, and then you are using another bacteria like propionibacterium, right? And then you develop doing the fermentation process, and then once the fermentation happens, you are killing the microorganisms, you're really releasing out the microbial metabolite, and then that microbial metabolite is a calcium lactate or calcium propionate. So lactobacillus is basically producing the calcium lactate. Lactic acid is getting produced, and you can bound it to the calcium, that is the salt, calcium lactate, lactic acid. And propionibacterium will produce the propionic acid and calcium propionate. That is a preservative that you can prepare through fermentation, and is widely used for controlling the molds, controlling different kinds of foul pathogens, right? Again is the process. Next is the process of citric acid. So this is another molecule you must have heard about. So citric acid also produced from the fermentation, right? And using glucose as a raw material, using a suitable microbial inoculum, and then preparing a suitable media, maintaining a pH, doing the fermentation process, and then finally the product you will get as a final citrate or salt, sodium citrate, potassium citrate, calcium citrate, etc., etc., like that. The molecule which is produced in the fermentation is citric acid that you bond with the calcium to produce the salt, right? That is also a good preservative. Another kind of preservative you must have heard about, that is acetic acid, right? Most commonly used in the pickles for preservation, for pickles, different kinds of sausages, vinegar. That vinegar is basically acetic acid. 5 to 8% of acetic acid is vinegar, right? So that can also you produce by fermentation. You can produce as in the liquid form or as a powder form, as in the form of calcium acetate, like fermentation broth. Okay, Fermentation broth contains that glucose only with the specific microorganisms with suitable pH and temperature, with suitable nutrient components, and then you're fermenting that glucose to make the that acetic acid, sorry, and then acetic acid, since it is produced in the broth, right? So that if you have to develop it as a salt, then you have to produce a calcium acetate. So that you have to neutralize the pH of the broth in the fermentation condition with the calcium, and then you spray dry it to form a calcium acetate powder. So this is about the calcium acetate. So this is also known as vinegar powder, right? So normally the vinegar is basically found available in the market as a liquid entity, but you can also produce as a powder. So when we have developed this, we have tested this in the pickles and onion salad preparation, multiple fruit salad preparation, multiple vegetables, different salads we are using for consumption. So here we have tested this product and we have found a good shelf life of those pickles and its salads. Next is about the propionic acid. It is generally regarded as safe. So propionic acid bacteria, as in my one of the slide I have shown, that the propionic acid can be produced by the propionibacterium and is a great anti-mold agent. You must have come across if you have stored kept the bread outside, right, in the open environment. So you must have found that the bread is contaminated with some kind of molds and spores, right? Molds and spores. So that is basically contaminated better bread and is having a different molds on it. So that taste changes, the texture changes of the bread, and you don't consume it, right? So if you use the propionic acid and propionic acid based salts, right, so then basically you can enhance the shelf life of the bread, right? So normally it is can be produced by the chemicals also, but I am telling you about the biological fermentation. Okay, since I am working in the biological field, so I am elaborating about the biological concept where these molecules can be produced, these substances can be produced, and these can be used as a preservatives, and these are the good replacement of the chemicals, of their own chemicals, like from propionic acid, acetic acid, lactic acid. All these molecules can be produced petrochemically also, through chemical synthesis also, but there is a route through biological fermentation where you can produce it and you can achieve many good shelf life, also a green label product, a clean label product, okay, a vegan product, right? And mostly it is producing from the glucose. So glucose is basically a plant entity, a plant-based glucose to fermentation-based preservatives, right? That you have to check it about, and you can see. So we have tested this kind of calcium propionate in making the breads and in different concentration, and we found a great shelf life. So as soon as we are increasing the concentration of these preservatives, so that shelf life is getting extended, right? So that you can keep the bread in the open condition as well, without fridge, without refrigerator, and that you can achieve the good shelf life of 20-25 days as well, where you are not getting the shelf life of 4 or 5 days in the normal breads, right? So this is a good thing. So this is all about the natural chemicals and preservative. So this is like from this presentation, actually I wanted to tell you more about all those stuffs which are getting produced to fermentation, but since I am bound with the time limits, so I'm not able to deliver all those things. But yeah, just to dear students, I just want to tell you that yeah, the biological things are having a great demand, and this is basically changing the future, right? So all these biologicals will replace the chemicals, right? So that you have to take care of, and you have to learn properly through your faculties, and you have to always check it out that what all things can be produced biologically and how you can replace the chemicals from your system. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, ma'am.
Storage, natural preservatives, self-life, excessive usage of the acid in making paneer, fermentation, production of glucose and citric acid, salt production, and so on. So much information, sir. And anybody wants to ask questions, please ask questions.
Questions, please. Yes. Yes. I will be happy to answer some few questions.
Anybody or willing to participants? Anybody? No thanks, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
ஏதாச்சும் பேசுங்க ஏதாச்சும் பேசுங்க
Kindly
இருக்கட்டும் சார்ஜ் இருக்குல்ல எத்தனை இருக்கு மூணா பார்த்துக்கலாம் ஆஃப் பேச பண்ணுங்க
வேற யாரும் பேசுவாங்களா?
இருக்கு யார் ஜாயின் ஆயிருக்கா
நீங்க
நாங்க
தான்.
பேசுங்க.
We are about to start the session. Kindly listen.
என்னடா போனா கேள்வி போன் வந்து
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hello.
பேசுங்க.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Kritika?
Yes, ma'am. I hear you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
It is my great honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished chief guest, Dr. Anto. Dr. Anto currently serves as Assistant Professor in Department of Chemical Science, Faculty of Science at University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia. She has an impressive academic journey with a PhD, MSc, and BSc in Food Science and Nutrition from Arul Institution for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, Coimbatore. With more than 2 decades of academic and research experience, she has served in esteemed institutions in both India and Malaysia, including Fatima, Madurai, and Uttar, Malaysia. Her research expertise spans precision nutrition, nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, food science, and sustainable food technologies. Dr. Anto has been actively involved in international research collaborations, securing numerous research grants and contribution significantly to scientific knowledge with over 40 research publications, book chapters, and conference presentations. Her work particularly focuses on gene-diet interactions, nutrition-related metabolic diseases, and sustainable innovations in food science. She is also a life member of several professional bodies, including the Nutrition Society of Malaysia and the Nutrition Society of India, and has received international recognition for her contributions to precision nutrition research. We are indeed privileged to have such an accomplished academician and researcher with us today. On behalf of this organizing committee, I extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to Dr. Anto and invite her to share her valuable insights with us. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very good introduction. And good evening, everyone, because here it's almost 3. And thank you, Dr. Kritika, for giving me this opportunity to speak at this international conference. Well, to begin with, I am Anto Cordelia. I'm from the Department of Chemical Science, and I'm related to the Center for Biomedical and Nutrition Research from the University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia. And this is our Lakeside campus. And everyone is welcome to visit Malaysia and Utah. Well, this is a very interesting topic. How are we going to move from the ancestral diets to the modern diet? And how this title is more like how we package old wine in a new bottle. So ancestral diets were the purest forms of food what they had, like our ancestors who are mostly hunter gatherers. So their main job is to hunt for the food and to gather whatever that is produced from the forest, like the fruits or the vegetables. So there was no processing, there was no preservatives added, there was no fast foods. So everything that came out from the ancestral diets were pure form. And they somehow managed to connect these ancestral diets with our human biology or body, which our typical Western diet do not do much. And we are fully deviated from the natural produce that we got once. And in those days, of course, we did not have any pollution, we did not have the environmental issues, we didn't have the ozone layer. And so whatever that was produced, even the pesticides or whatever the grains that the actually not the grains, the fruits or the vegetables that we got from the natural resources were all pure without any contamination of fertilizers or pesticides or anything. So they tend to have access to the more natural foods, they were more connected with the nature. Even the animals like what we have now, they were all they did not have any hormone injections, or they were not allowed to grow in an artificial area where we have the controlled growing parameters, and those were grown just because to serve as a food. So this is what happened in the ancestral time. So when you look into how this ancestral diet started, it started actually we call it as a Paleolithic diet. So which means we try to uh, relate this to the Paleolithic ancestors. So they hunted the foods or they gathered the foods. It was all fresh. It could be nuts, it could be fruits, it could be seeds, or even the animals or the animal flesh and the fish. So, but at this stage of the Paleolithic diet, they did not have any grains that has been grown. So, grains and dairies were not part of the Paleolithic diet. And next, followed by Paleolithic diet, was the Neolithic diet. So, Neo means new. So, this is we evolved from the Paleolithic diet to the Neolithic diet, and this happened nearly around 10,000 years ago when we first started agriculture. Like you started to introduce grains or legumes or dairies, and this is the first paradigm shift from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic diets, where we started to grow something, not just go and gather the foods, we started to grow something. And again, when we started to grow something, we tried to rely on that particular foods. So we slowly started to get with nutritional deficiencies. And we started to compromise on the dietary diversity as well. So when the Neolithic diet allowed for most of our civilizations to grow, uh, it still that was the starting of introducing all those new varieties. So everything started with this Neolithic period, but definitely that also allowed for the nutritional deficiencies which were not found in the Paleolithic man. Paleolithic diet was more nutrient dense, and Neolithic started to compromise on that. So this is how the diet pattern evolved. So the main components of the ancient diet was unprocessed food. It was wholesome. Uh, they were in the natural state, did not have any additives or preservatives. And even when they hunt the animals, they were grass fed, and they were caught wild. So they also tend to have more of nutrition because they did not tend to eat the plasticizers or anything. So it was all grass fed meat that they had access to, and they had higher and good quality nutrients. And then they have seasonal varieties of all the fruits and vegetables. uh, that is again more natural, as well as the nuts and seeds. So all those that were excluded from the ancestral diet was the processed sugars or even the grains. So now we try to shift from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic to the traditional foods that once our grandmothers tend to have. So when we change to the traditional foods, they still try to maintain some of the natural foods because they did not go in for the ready to eat or the processed foods. We still tend to get uh, foods that are wholesome, and they were cooked with appropriate methods, because when it comes to nutrition, it is not only the selection of the foods but also how we cook matters. And what time we consume matters again. What is the amount that we consume matter. So at least during our grandmother or great grandmother time, they still had the traditional methods of processing the foods. They did not have all the high tech equipments what we have now, all hand pounded grains, whatever it is. So it was all done on a traditional way. So they still could retain the fiber, the most amount of nutrients that they could, and they used the conventional method of cooking rather than going in for a microwaving or any other quick producing food. So they still tend to maintain the traditional methods of cooking. And of course, when technology starts to evolve, they still had foods that come with preservatives, unlike the Paleolithic or the Neolithic people, still considered okay. So then came this modern diet where we are now juggling between the traditional and the modern or the westernized pattern, because I think my age group that we were the last to have access to the traditional foods as well as to now trying to compromise with the modern or the westernized food. So there was a drastic change from the traditional to uh, the modern food, because whatever we wanted it to be very quick, because our world or our pace is very fast. So we wanted to move faster. Everything that comes ready to eat or quick, that is what we want. And we compromise more on the quality of the food. So we go in for the color, we go in for the texture, we go in for the taste, but we don't go in for the nutrient content of the particular food. So and again, uh, when you change to the western diet, there was I said a drastic change. So from a nutrient dense food to a calorie dense food, and there it started with risk for many of the non-communicable diseases. So now we are between the traditional diet and the modern or the western diet, where we have more access to all the fast foods and the processed and the ultra processed foods. What will be the future? So we are still struggling with this to we still do not choose the right path, whether to go in for the traditional method or to stick to the western pattern, or how would the future generation be, or how are we going to transform this pattern to our younger generation. So that is where the precision nutrition comes in. So before I move into the precision foods, these are some of the most popular modern diets where some of us even try to mimic in this current situation to live those kind of diets. So we have the ketogenic diet, we have plant-based or vegan diets. Some of us follow intermittent fasting. Some of them try to mimic the paleo diet or the dash diet or completely a low carb diet. But one thing what we often overlook in all these is when you choose to shift your dietary pattern from the normal to any special food requirement, you have to see what is the scientific evidence behind all this. Have they done any longitudinal studies for nearly 10 years or uh, 15 years to see what is the impact? Because I've seen people who have shifted to the ketogenic diet, focused completely on the fat, and tried to reduce their carbohydrate intake. But always remember, your brain and your nervous system, your RBCs, all of these require only glucose. Only glucose can pass through the blood brain barrier. So, whatever the food that we consume, 20% of it, especially the glucose, will be used up by our brain to do all the other activities. So, if you are depriving your body of glucose, your body will shift from the glucose metabolism to the ketone body mechanism. So, this ketone body metabolism produces ketone bodies that changes the pH of your blood, and they tend to accumulate more of these ammonia. So these ammonias can tend to enter into your brain. There is another compound that can cross your blood-brain barrier, even the ketone bodies. So when they go and accumulate, they try to fog your brain and can cause encephalopathy, or even they can put you in coma. So this is what you are trying to do. we already have a recommendation that how much percentage of carbs should be taken from your diet and how much of protein and fats. So if you are totally controlling the glucose, then slowly, because fat and protein takes longer time to digestion, so when you increase the amount of proteins or fat, you're putting extra strain on your kidneys. So your kidneys start to overwork when you do that, and then slowly lose its function. So this what happens. So we do not have any scientific study that a person who changed complete to keto diet did not end up with any kidney or other issues after 10 years or 4 years. And most commonly, these people will tend to reverse back to the normal diet because of they do not have the compliance. And all these are monotonous diet, and they feel uh, like it is already overwhelmed with that. So any of these diets, even when you check for plant-based diets, yes, it is good, it has got nutrients, but in today's world, when you're taking too much of plant foods, you have to be cautious as well, because most of the vegetables or the plant-based products all come with preservatives, and we don't know, and we think we are taking the right or the proper food. And intermittent fasting. So studies have proven that there is no change in any of your body parameters or loss of your body weight when you are doing intermittent fasting. See, already we have a pattern of eating. Like we always, the rule of thumb is, or we always advise to take only uh, small and frequent meals. So that allows enough time for our body to digest, to absorb all the nutrients. But if you are not following that and you are overburdening your stomach, you're sending food after food at late night, because your body also has its own time to perform each function. So you are disturbing your body mechanism. And intermittent fasting, again, they have done a systematic review of nearly 40 studies that has been done on intermittent fasting, and they see very, very light change, that 0.5% change for the purpose of what you're doing. So it is not going to do any good either. And there are no, again, longitudinal studies. So when someone says, and now we know everyone can speak nutrition in the social media, you can see everyone can talk about nutrition and food, but always remember, uh, you have to look for the evidence, whether whatever they say has any scientific evidence, whether that has been proven in the human study, not those that are proven in animal studies or cell line studies, whether that has got sound scientific evidence that is done with the human trials, and whether that studies have been done on a larger population. So all those have to be done, and you have to check who are the researchers, whether they are well established researchers and what is the protocol that they follow. So without any scientific evidence, bluntly do not share this kind of social media messages, as well as do not try to follow them, because what works for the others may not work for us. So the simple thing is portion control. So you can reduce your portion size, eat at the appropriate time, and see how you eat your food. Let's say if you wanted to reduce your glucose levels, then probably when you start consuming your food, you have to start with the fiber first. So have fiber, then protein, and then go in for carbohydrates that will allow you to release the blood slowly. So method of eating, the time of eating, everything matters. So it's not just one factor that contributes to your weight gain or to any of the other non-communicable diseases. Uh, so you need carbohydrates. Do not drastically reduce your carbohydrates unless otherwise it has been recommended. Normally doctors don't recommend a low carb diet. If you are a diabetic, they will ask you only to control the portion size and to shift to what type of the carbohydrates that you take. Like you have to refrain from taking all the simple sugars. Okay, so even if you all sugars of course are plant based, isn't it? Whether it is stevia or it is cane sugar or it is from coconut sugar or any alternative sugar, every sugar comes only from the plant. So there's no claims as such as plant based sugar. And the more white any sugar is, the more processing has happened. So the processing can necessarily destroy all the essential ones. So that is what you have to look into. So this is what now modern people are focusing. So they wanted to have a change in their diet. So they, without any prior research or review, they just focus on these type of diets. And we know, like in Malaysia, our school for the kids starts around 7 a.m. in the morning. So the students have to leave their home at least by 6:30. So at 6:30, what best can they have? So now we have all the ready to eat meals. Every meal can be now changed into ready to eat or ready to cook meals. And we have many of the eateries so that have come with this packed foods. You just have to heat it up in a microwave and consume. So when you are doing that, you are compromising on the quality and the nutrient that is present in the particular food, because all processed foods come with preservatives. So we won't know whether that has been a permitted additive or a permitted preservative or a non-permitted preservatives. And this is a starting point where there is incidence of this leads to the risk of more number of cancer cases, because all these chemicals can trigger your cancer cells. So all those packaged, so you have to look into what type of packaging it is and how long that can keep good. So all this have to be considered when you are trying for any easy food. Of course, it looks fancy. It is ready to, when you're traveling, it's easy for you to take and go to any place, but you have to think on the health part. So if you think you are going in for any of the smart foods, like one meal contain all these nutrients that is recommended for a day's that should come from a day's meal, can come from one single meal. So all those are bullshit. So never listen to those kind of things. One meal, these type of foods once were given to our people who are in army or navy, or who are in remote areas where they do not have access to the shops or to the eateries or restaurants. So only for those people these type of ready to eat foods were introduced. But now every common man, when they have access to all the nice or the wholesome foods, they still go in for this. So when you make these kind of choices, ask yourself, how smart are you to choose these smart foods? So when you think of how these old wines are being changed to new bottles, but I wouldn't say they retain the same property as an old wine. You know, isn't it? As a wine ages, the quality of the wine improves or it increases. So once considered as the fermented rice, the traditional foods, what the common man consumed, now is being very much welcomed by the Westerners, and they came out with the modernized version of your parayasod. So they have this in bottles as traditional fermented rice. So the good thing about the fermented rice is it produces resistant starch, and since we ferment, it has all the good and natural probiotics. And this is the only food, along with, if you take it with curds, it is the only food that have tryptophan. And tryptophan also can cross your blood-brain barrier. So this is one of the most effective foods. But normally we won't appreciate what is produced in our country. So now the Westerners, they say they patent and they sell it in different forms as the traditional fermented rice. The same thing goes to our curd. So every mother in the family is a scientist. They know, without any scientific proof or evidence, they already know how to prepare curd with the probiotics, the micro or the useful microorganisms. And the oldest traditional methods of how we prepare the curd can stay only for 24 hours, because they do not have any natural, they do not have any preservatives or added sugars. It's all natural. So it can stay only for 24 hours or 1 day. After that, it will add on to the harmful microorganisms. That is what will give you a sour taste. But now we have the modernized version of the curds, which we call it as the yogurts. And these yogurts come with added sugar, the preservatives. They say they have added the strains. It's not coming from the natural source, and it can stay for a longer time. So anything that stays longer than the normal duration definitely will have more of preservatives. So these are the traditional foods that have been given a new look in the modern time. So everyone, I know we are fond of biryanis. So these biryanis were once the food that were given to warriors who go for wars because they need more energy. They did not have all the sophisticated missiles and other things last time. So during war, they have to carry all those weapons, and these soldiers often try to be deprived of nutrition. So the kings or the Mughals, those days, they gave this biryani, which is a combination of all the spices, and all the nutrients that they could get from one single pot of rice. So that was given only for the warriors, not for the normal man. But now, uh, okay, at least in a few decades back, biryani was once the food for the festivals. So during any festival, or at least once in a week maximum, we tend to get biryanis. But now we consume this almost 3 or 4 times in a week. And again, we have moved from the traditional way of making the biryani to the ready to cook biryani mix. Again, they also come with preservatives. You just have to put the bag in a pot of hot water and it gets cooked. So the more easy we get, the more easy we tend to get diseases as well. So if we wanted to move now towards the future, it should be the precision plate. So precision nutrition is, we already come to the conclusion that we cannot follow the one size fits all approach anymore, which means the general dietary recommendations that is being given by every country based on the general population does not hold good for everyone, because we are unique and we have inter individual variability, so that differs. The same amount of food can be consumed by two different people, but they have different metabolic rate, they have different absorption levels or the bioavailability of nutrients. So you cannot expect the same result in both the persons. So what we have to do now, or in the future at least, is we are going in for a precision place that is tailored or customized to the individual's makeup, like your genetic makeup, how your gut microbiome, what is the quality and the quantity of the gut microbiome, and what is the metabolic rate, and what are the different factors, or how your body really functions. So considering all these multifactorial factors, we come to a conclusion that we design you based on your genetic and other factors, and then prescribe a tailored diet only for you. So that will help you to prevent disease risk, or that can come or help you to overcome the disease risk. So that is a precision plate. So the difference between a personalized and a precision nutrition is, a personalized nutrition is the guidelines that is given to an individual based on the normal or general diets. But when it comes to precision nutrition, it is again, you have large data sets, including your nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, transcriptomics, epigenetics, your gut microbiome, metabolomics, clinical markers, along with your lifestyle factors like how often you exercise, how many hours you sleep, how many hours are you exposed to the sunlight, and what is your eating behavior. So it encompasses all these factors, and then they come out with a specified diet chart for the individual. So that is called as precision nutrition. And the main idea is to help them overcome the disease risk. So this will be the future, but of course, now we are still in the infancy stage, because when we talk about the genetic data, each of us have our own genetic makeup, and we need a lot of scientific evidence for every ethnic group, for every country, every state. And in India, we know we are very diverse. So for every ethnicity or for every group of people, you need to have the genetic data, because we cannot use the genetic data that has been tested with the Westerners or the Americans or the Europeans, because their genetic makeup is different, and we cannot take that as a Bible and then follow the precision nutrition in India or the personalized nutrition in India. So right now we are in the stage of generating evidences. So we are looking how the gene and the nutrient can interact. So what is the interaction, and who are the people at risk for getting a particular disease, and how that risk can be overcome by modifying their diet. This is what we are now. So at infancy stage, and we are not ready to go in for a precision nutrition or a personalized or a genetic plate or diet at the moment. So if someone says that they can give you recommendation based on just your genetic makeup alone, no. Again, it is an interplay of many genes, not just one gene decides who you are. So at now we are in the infancy stage, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 decades we will go in for these kind of precision recommendation. Who knows, we will have a microchip of all our genetic data or your metabolomic data, and just when you put it, you will get all the information that you need, how you have to modify your diet or your lifestyle, or what should be done. So that is the future of this. So that is what we are moving now, from ancestral to the Western to the genomic kitchen. So just remember one thing: our body is not a checklist to check everything that you do this, you do this. It doesn't work that way. Even though you have reminders to drink water, to eat right foods, to exercise at a particular time, or if you are taking supplements, what are the supplements you can go in for? So all those is not, your body does not listen to the checklist. Instead, you have to listen to what your body says, because you only know better about your body than anybody else uh, in the world. So you have to listen to your body first. What you know, when you take a particular kind of food, what kind of a reaction your body produces. So only you will be able to relate it. So listen to your body, what it says, and do not going in for any fast actions. So anything that is quick also ends up quick. So that is the rule. So take time, understand your body, then go in for something. Try first for a longer time to see if that is producing any good results, and then probably you may move to that. And don't go in for loud ones. Loud here means like people trying to influence you. We have now a lot of TikTok and Instagram influencers. So don't go in for those who are talking about like intermittent fasting or ketogenic diets. So don't rely on what is coming fast. The faster it comes, the faster it goes. And do not go for very quick effect. Don't think that you need to see a change immediately. So your body, whatever the new things that you introduce to your body, it has to adapt to your body, and then it start produces results. So you have to give your body the time for it to process all these information. And listen, do not stress yourselves, because stress is one of the major factors for all the metabolic metabolism. So you have to be stress free, and make sure you get enough sleep at night, not during the daytime. That is not counted as sleep. Only at night most of your hormones like melatonin or serotonin can work. So don't break the circadian rhythm. That is why I always say listen to your body. So do that. And yes, of course, to some extent your genetics will influence your food intake or dietary pattern, or even your disease risk. But still there are ways how you can overcome this disease risk. So that is what we are trying to relate as of now. So listen to your body and try to converse. Take it like a conversation, and then you slowly move or take action for what is required. So remember, your body is like a holy temple. So you have to give due respect to your body, and you cannot abuse your body with fast foods or processed foods, or like a glutton cannot eat too much of food. Okay, so you have to appreciate your body, respond to your body and what it says, and then try to modify your lifestyle or your food habits. So, if we wanted to go back to the ancestral eating, of course, that is very difficult. Everything has completely changed now. So, planetary health has declined a lot. We have to look for the health of the planet, the environment, and then comes the population or the food. So, as long as you are there, do not try to harm or uh, do not try to deforest or change the nature. Don't try to change the nature. Okay, so when we try to do that, that results in most of the calamities or disasters in the world. So we have to be like life is a boomerang. We once will we will go back to the ancestral part, but what you can do at the moment is try to go in for wholesome foods, have family meals, and cook in a more nutritional way rather than going in for quick meals or smart meals that can work only for a short time and that is not for your longer period. So you have to check that, and whatever you do it ethically. Even if you wanted to promote, before you share any information related to nutrition or other things, take a moment to think whether this information is authentic or is it appropriate to share. So without doing that, do not share the messages, especially when it comes to nutrition or diet related messages. So the faster the message, because now this travels at a very high speed. Evidences takes time, but these kind of influencers and their messages travel very fast. So wait patiently, see if there are any end results, and then try to save the planet as well as you. So that's all for the moment. uh, we may not be able to go back to the ancestral side, but we may try to see how we can take the good things that can be practiced at this period. So try to do that. And thank you everyone for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. A detailed explanation about ancestral diet like paleo diet, Neolithic diet, keto diet, intermittent fasting, and mild diet, and so on. A well explained, ma'am. And I learned from you is we have to eat more fiber, more protein, the methods of eating, and the time is more important. And as you said, a low carb diet is the best diet, and we encourage you to take cholesterol. And thanks for that, ma'am. And I make sure hereafter I will listen to my body. And thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful talk. I think it's an eye-opening session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the floor?
Ready to ask question? Online participants can also. Do you have a question, ma'am? Yeah. This is Sri and from Green World Science Anandar. I have a doubt on consuming millets after our actually our diet is running carbohydrates. When we newly consume millets for daily, we face issues like diarrhea. When you request us to consume millets regularly or to consume carbohydrates.
See, millets again, you have to give your body the time to adapt. Okay, so all this while you're being practiced with all the fast foods or processed foods, and suddenly you wanted to change. So your stomach will now get a shock. What is this? All this while we are being trained to digest that one. Now you are giving me new things. So of course millets are good, but it can be complemented with carbohydrates. That is to reduce the glucose spike. And of course they also have more antioxidant and other things. In the modern times you may also have to check on how much is the processing of these millets. whether they still have the original properties, or when we process, we may lose some of the nutrients. But complementing your pure carbohydrates or simple carbohydrates with millets is always advisable. Any kind of millets. So any new foods that we try definitely will have, if there is any discomfort, so that takes time for your gut to adjust to the particular food. So you may have diarrhea or anything, but not for a longer time. So you cannot conclude just once you got it that these millets are not acceptable. No, give your body time to adapt to the particular situation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions?
No questions, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to Dr. Kirtika for inviting me to this conference. Thanks again.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice to have you with us, ma'am. It was a valuable session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.